Hey, what's up everybody? It's Marcus. In this week's video, we're going to take the R5 versus Z7, the sensors. I'm going to give you some raw files to play with. We're going to do some underexposed shots. We're going to do some natural light shots and some flash shots and see if the R5 sensor is caught up to the mighty Z7 sensor. And please go to ProPhotoEdits.com. where you can download my Lightroom presets and Photoshop actions. Every image that you've seen me upload here on YouTube and on my website, on my Instagram, has been edited with these presets and my Lightroom actions. I want to let you guys know that my course is up right now. It's my creative lighting course and photo editing course. So this is like a bundle. You're going to learn how I do all my creative lighting in studio. Every piece of gear that I use, I break it down to why I choose the colors that I choose. Every single thing. No stone is left unturned. And then we're going to hop into Lightroom. You get my Lightroom presets for each file. There's 6 in there right now. There's going to be 12 by the end of the year. Then we'll hop into Photoshop and I give you screen recordings of me editing each one of these shots, so I can show you how to really up your game on both sides, shooting and editing. And I also just uploaded 2 new courses. This is the light bending technique that you've seen on my Instagram. Go check my Instagram out, I'll link it. And this is all done in camera with minimal gear, and I'll show you exactly how to do that. And I also just finished uploading the complete and partial silhouettes that you're looking at right now. This is totally different than how you expect it to be done, and it's not very expensive to do it also. I also just finished uploading this user request video, how I stretch to get around the Instagram crop and how I export things to give them extra pop for social media. So that's in there now too. So I just want to show you what we're working with this week. We have the R5 with the 51.2 RF, and we have the Z7 with the 51.2 S-line lens. So 2 top of the line lenses on 2 of the premier sensors out there. Same sensor in the Z7 as the Z7II. Okay guys, so today we're going to do some torture testing. I want to test out the Z7II sensor versus the R5 sensor. And we're going to do this just with some random shots in natural light, a little bit underexposed, a little bit overexposed, color wise, and then I'll show you what they look like strobe so you can see the difference and why I really love Nikon sensors, and I'm a Canon shooter primarily right now. There's just something special about the Nikon sensors. But first thing I want to do is touch on this sharpness issue with the 51.2S on the Nikon side. So the new Nikon lens, as you watched last week's video, the 51.2S, I did it versus the RF 51.2, which I own on the R5 and the Z7 respectively. And I had some comments about the Nikon lens not being as sharp as the RF, and I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, you can be splitting hairs there, but the Nikon did miss a ton more shots, you know. And I know the R5 has much better focusing capability than anything outside of like the Z9 on the Nikon side, and I've heard some mixed things even about that. But I just wanted to zoom in on some of these files here. So here on my right, this is the RF on the right, and this is the Nikon on the left. And you can tell that because when I click over here, we go to ISO 64. That's native on the Z7. And I'll just go in and I'll show you. It's plenty sharp. It's plenty sharp. You can see it's just as sharp as the RF version, and that's 1.2 on both. The sharpness isn't the issue for me, you know. It's just the focus inconsistencies and the size of that lens, you know. But outside of that, let's get into checking out some of these files, and we're going to try to bring some files back to life that were natural light and show you strobe too. Okay guys, so first I just want to show you this. If you're strobing a lot, there's not going to be that big of a difference in the sensors in pretty much any modern camera. You know, they're going to retain a lot of color and stuff like that. So I'm just picking, and you can download these raw files and play with them. I'll let you play with the actual raw files there. Download them, check them out, and then I'll give you some of these natural light shots too, so you can really see what the difference is here. And I just did the same thing to each one, so the color balance might be off a little bit. This is the Nikon Z7. I'm gonna call it Z7 Z7II because it's the same sensor on the left, and this is the R5 on the right. So same exact thing done to each, both with the 50s at 1.2, and you can tell over here I'm at ISO 64. I'm over here at ISO 100 because the R5 doesn't go to 64 natively. And I mean, back to the focusing issue, I could pick a lot of these files in the the 51.2 on the Nikon side, or maybe I should just say the Z7 was a bit off in most of these. I didn't hit most of them completely, which is kind of frustrating, but I'm not going to get into focusing on both these cameras because you know the R5 cooks the Nikon series in focusing. But most importantly here, I want to talk about the sensor and why I'm kind of frustrated with the focusing issues I've had with Nikon, because I really love their sensors. Alright, so all things equal, strobed, you're not going to see much difference, right? But we all like to shoot natural light a lot, okay? So let's get into some of that. Okay, so let's just take these two files right here. These are I just wanted to do this for the comparison's sake. I wasn't shooting like this on this day, by the way, but this is going to be the R5 file over here on the right. So they're pretty much identical in nature. So let's push these and see which file looks best whenever we correct it a little bit. Go back to compare mode. Now the Z7 file is on the left and the R5 is on the right. So not bad. In this scenario where it's not like super duper terrible lighting, the R5 really has caught up to the dynamic range of the Z series, I think. That was a big deciding factor for me. I think that the raw files are better out of the Nikon, just being completely honest with you. And I'll show you that here in a second, and some really bad lighting, you know, and we'll go through some of those. But just if you want to just not get crazy with it, I think that you're not going to have a bad result either way here. This really show you why I love the Z7 sensor, and how I've pushed these files for years. This is a very much underexposed shot here on the person, on the subject, right? So all I did really here was I pushed the shadows. Let's just push them up to 100%. Push the whites up a little bit. Bring the blacks down a little bit. Highlights, we can bring them down a touch. We can bring the contrast up just a little bit. Nothing much there. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll do the radial gradient, put it over the subject, make it a little bit bigger than that, and then bring the exposure down a little bit, and then pull the blacks up a touch for the background, invert it so she has a little bit of a halo on her, and then we'll pull the colors up, the vibrance, and then we'll pull the warmth down a bit. And I'm trying to figure out color balance wise. Let's go to auto and see if that helps. That's better. So on the Z7 you can really get away with a lot. This is just a crap shot that would probably be thrown away, you know, any other time. And now the Z7, you can really push these type of files. It's really good at this. Alright, so just for comparison here, I try to find the underexposed R5 file. This is with the 85 1.2, by the way. But I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pull the shadows up, pull the whites up, pull the highlights down a little bit. I already put it on auto. It's a little bit warm. It's a different area, but the same overall thing. Where this, I don't even think this file was quite as underexposed. Let's go to the radial gradient. Pull the exposure down a little bit, invert it around her, pull the blacks up a little bit in the shadows. You just can't push it as far. That doesn't look terrible, by the way. It's just there's something about the R5 being underexposed in all Canon sensors. It's way better than it used to be, in my opinion. But as you see me move this around, you see how, look at her cheeks. I'm trying to bring as much contrast back, and we already got all our shadows up, so now we have to start playing with the curves. Or we could pull the blacks up and then keep pushing the contrast, but we're gonna run into the same type of issues. It did hit focus. It's incredibly sharp. Sometimes I gotta bring the sharpening down on the R5 to make it more friendly to the skin. But I mean, that's not bad. I mean, if you weren't comparing it to the other, you say that's totally usable, right? For natural light, a completely underexposed mess of an exposure. But I definitely think that the Z7 files hold a little bit more detail in the shadows, more contrast in the shadows, and just overall usability of an underexposed crap shot. Alright, so here's a torture test. Complete terrible lighting in the back of my house. The colors are, you know, I would never really shoot this, but this is a torture test, right? If it can get something good out of a file that's, you know, I didn't put him in harsh light because that would have just been terrible of me. But the light is behind, the colors, you would never put this color scheme with this fence. I don't like the lighting in my neighborhood, by the way. I always leave here to shoot. But here we go. So this is a Z7 file, and 51.2, ISO 64, and this is a RAW file. Okay, so just with pushing it, I would say not much, you know. Natural light, you get a lot back. Let's reset it, and I want you to pay attention here. Reset it, go back in, see if it hit focus. It did not. It just missed it a little bit, and that was my kind of issue with the 51.2 on the Nikon side. So let's go back here to an R5 file, the exact same thing. So pay attention to how much contrast here the Nikon file was, the RAW file, than this R5 file. This is a R5 RAW file, and I'll show you how to get around that a little bit. You can go into browse here. Someone had a question about that, and then go into camera matching, and you can go into like standard is a little bit more of a contrastier way to start a RAW file, if that's what you like. I don't always do that because you can get there with a couple of tweaks anyway, but it's totally up to you. So let's go in here to the same thing that I did to this R5 file. I'll reset it here so you can see how much of a really raw file is on the R5. There's not much there, and just very flat natural light. And then I did the exact same things. I did the same radial gradient trick here as I did over here, and then I compare these two. And this is why I love the Nikon sensors, and why I still think that they're better overall. Obviously you can go look at my work. It's all over Instagram, it's all over my pro photo edits, and you can tell that I know, I mean, these are just crap comparisons, but you know, if you can get anything out of a file here, you can get it when you're really working and doing what you need to do. You can go to those websites and see that I know what I'm doing. It's just that this file has more depth. I pushed it the same amount, and I can already see without even going in here that this is starting to lose detail. The shadows aren't as punchy. I mean, there's not as much contrast to the overall file. And it's splitting hairs, but I just have been so happy over the years working with the Nikon files, and I feel like the Canon files with the R5 is the only one that really gets me close to the Z7 look as far as like contrast and being able to push stuff, but you still can't push it as much, and nothing really can compare to my GFX. I can push those files to hell and back, completely underexposed, completely overexposed. It's just magical what you can do with those. But for full frame purposes, the thing that always has me on the fence is like Nikon focusing issues always play a part. I'm always checking and chimping and looking and seeing if I hit. The R5, I don't even look for that. I just look that I get the shot right. I just shot a whole wedding last week with the 50-85 and the 35 on my R5. I don't have any out of focus shots. 4,000 or more shots. I'm just picking the best ones. None. I don't worry about it anymore. Maybe that day has come with the Z9. I don't know yet. But I wouldn't shoot those type of things. You know, as a portrait shooter, I can take my time a lot of the time, and try to get make sure I get the focusing right, but it's just frustrating. I don't really want to go back to that. I do miss the files though, so you can play with these files and push them, because it's always better for you to do it on your end. Take my word for it, but do it yourself. So I'm gonna give you all these files that we looked at today, raw, compare them, and just maybe this will help play into your decision of, man, if I want to leave this system and go to there, are the drawbacks worth it, and the way you like to edit and stuff like that. So until next week, you guys, will get back into some fun, super creative stuff, and then I'm gonna do my full 51.2 RF full length review with this, a ton of images, pretty much everything on my Instagram for the last year, shot with that lens, and why I love it so much. So until next week, I love y'all. See you later. It's Marcus.